talking the issues and taking the hit. Here they are, the two crazy guys.
And welcome back to the third section of the show today. And we have been talking about, oh man, if we opened up a can of worms, we're chasing that rabbit down the hole. So we've been talking about how to do it without firing a shot. And so far, the first step, like I said, is get yourself educated. And like I said, you don't need a law degree or anything like that. Just understand that we live in a republic and not a democracy. And then number two, go out there, find your candidates that are going to adhere to the confines and the principles of the Constitution. Work to get them elected.
Yeah.
Work hard. Go out, volunteer. Make phone calls. You can go over to your local committee office, and they have phone banks, and you can volunteer to make phone calls. You can go knocking on people's doors. You can hand out flyers. You can put, when we get closer to the elections, you can help your candidates by putting up signs. There's always something that the candidate needs help doing. Help your candidate to get elected, and then create that relationship with that candidate so that you have a friend that is willing to listen to what you say.
Right. And I don't want people to start thinking this is like you're creating a good old boys club. But you have to have a good relationship, a working relationship with the people that we have elected.
Exactly.
So it's not like you're playing golf with the guy and trying to cheat the city out of money.
No.
You're just trying to have an exchange to where you can shake hands with the guy if you meet him at a restaurant and say, how's it going? Where are we at on this?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay.
And I'm not talking about, going out and spending a bunch of money and buying dinners and all this and bribing and all. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, a good relationship where you can have a communication, and it's an open door where that individual is willing to listen to what you have to say.
Right.
And they'll either agree with you or they won't agree with you.
Well, and if you're finding people that are like-minded, maybe the nuts and bolts of it might be a little up for discussion. But the underlying goal will always be the same,
Right.
So that's good. So
and
then what do we?
And then before you know it, after a while, you have started creating, other relationships with like-minded individuals, because everybody knows two or three friends.
Right.
Oh, I got a friend in Wisconsin. We got a friend in Michigan.
Right.
Let's talk to him. Let's get on the phone. Let's have a Skype and let's talk to him and let's say, okay, look, you need to find. Or, even if you think that individual is going to be a good candidate, convince them to run.
Right.
And say, okay, look, find yourself 5 or 6 guys. Get this guy elected, man. Get him elected. Work hard to get him elected. And before you know it, you start that somebody over there in that group knows somebody over in, Colorado.
Right.
And somebody in that group, and before you know it, you have a whole grassroots movement that is working to bring back and save the republic. Right. And I'm telling you, man, it works. I know it works because I have put it into play myself personally.
Right. What I like about it, and maybe I'm oversimplifying, but I think, as far as being close to home, you're going to be helping people that are considered or called your representative, which is your congressman.
Right.
And if you look at the bath we took during this last election in the House, as far as Congress goes, you can see that their ground game is a lot better than ours. Mm-hmm. And we lost a lot of seats. Now everybody's like, yeah, but we kept the Senate. The Senate is really kind of irrelevant to me. And to get involved with the Senate race is millions of dollars. And you're trying to, call Hollywood elites, basically.
Right.
But if we could get total control of the House of Representatives, which are the guy that you live next door to, then we can get control of Congress again also. And then, they can fight their big fights in the Senate, but apparently the Democrats understand that the people that write the check and make the rules are really Congress. The senators are, they're powerful now only because we've allowed them to. But if we made enough changes to set things on a better course, you're going to want good congressmen. And that's the representative in your district, Bob, down the street that you went to school with.
Yep.
Help him get elected.
I'm working right now with, I'm not going to say any names right now because the individual hasn't really announced, but I already have somebody, you know, that I've committed to working with in that department. And
Yeah.
you know, these are the people that, and I mean, he's a solid candidate, solid guy. And these are the people I'm going to work my hardest to get him elected.
Now, let me ask you, because you and I, and probably most of our listeners and the people that like CRN and patriots and preppers are going to be on the same page as us. How do we start getting the mindless sheeple, not just Democrats, but the people that, you know, like, you know, all my kids are Generation X. They're pretty rebellious and they believe in obey little and resist much, you know.
Nothing wrong
And
with
yet,
that.
when you talk to them about these issues, they're like, it doesn't matter. You know, who cares?
Yeah.
And they got this, I mean, they're young, you know, older than AOC, but they're young, you know, in their 30s and 40s. And they don't see that it's important.
Sure.
And by the time they do, it's kind of too late.
I agree.
So how do we wake up, you know, our neighbors, not just, you know, liberals, because I don't care about liberals and Democrats. How do we wake people up and just go, when you're talking to them about it, in a way to where they go, oh, I see, that could be handy, you know? How do you do that?
Well, you got to get their attention. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I mean, if it takes sounding the alarm every time you see or speak to them,
Right.
that's what it's going to take. But you know, you have to. Hey, do you like hot water? Because you know they're playing that game about Republicans want dirty water and dirty air and all this other garbage.
Yeah.
And you know that doesn't work, and that nobody listens to that crap. You have to be at it with a sincerity,
Right.
and you have to point out to them how important this is.
I think that's the nail on the head right there. Is, you know, it's the same with any kind of business you're in, and especially in media or video. You have to be seriously compassionate about it and believe in it.
Yeah.
And not be overbearing, or don't be a jackass. But you know, you got to feel it.
Yep. You do. You got to believe it in yourself. First of all, you have to believe, and when you believe, look, man. I had a very wise individual one time tell me that you have to bleed what it is you want people to see from you.
Right.
And if you can get yourself in a situation, the power of influence is amazing.
Right.
And if you can put yourself into a situation where you bleed wealth, then people are going to look at you as a wealthy individual, and they're going to respect the wealth. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
If you bleed that there is a true concern that we one day may very well wind up in a boxcar in a railroad somewhere, you know, people are going to see that, and they may take it at face value and say, oh, he's just a nutbag, or he's just a lunatic, or whatever. But
fearmonger.
But you have to have a healthy balance, because you can't just go overboard all the time. You have to have a healthy balance. And when you become the expert, okay? Because when you become the expert, people look up to you and say, this guy knows what he's talking about. Listen to what he's saying.
Right. Yeah, you know, that's the old business adage, you know, if you believe you can achieve, and, you know, even dress for success and all those old cliches now are true, because, you know, as you think is what you become and who you are. And maybe you are that person, and that's why you think that way. I don't know if the egg or the chicken came first, but, you know, it really is. You know, you have to have your principles, and I rail on that all the time. You know, and I'm making a new podcast for Prepper Guy that's just on values and stuff like that, because If you don't have any, then you can't believe in anything.
See, Mark, when people come into your store looking for floors, they come to you because you're the expert. You know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You know the materials that you sell. You know what's good. You know.
Yeah.
Me, when I was cleaning, when I had my carpet cleaning business, I went out and I learned the ins and outs about, what polyester and vinyl and all these different, man-made. And back in the old days, we used to shampoo carpets. It was all natural fibers, wools, and you flood it, soap it up, and then you suck it out. But you can't do that. You can't hot water extract with the man-made fabrics that we have because you'll destroy it. I mean, with the natural fabrics, you'll destroy it. So we use hot water extraction on polyester and all these different fabrics, nylon and all this other stuff that we have. And you have to learn what soaps to use, how much to put down, how much heat to use, how much suction. And when you go into Mr. and Mrs. Smith's house and say, that's so-and-so, and I know how to get that out, and you go in there and you pull that stain out of there, and they're like, wow, they're amazed. They're like, hey, when they go to the party at next door or something, and something's, Don Lowry, he's got a really good carpet cleaning, and he knows what he's doing.
Right.
And the word of mouth, and you become the expert, and people will start listening to you.
Right. And it does become kind of a simplistic, but when you become an expert, people understand that and they know it. I've had people go, well, I've got a Dyson vacuum cleaner, and I go, with this kind of carpet, you'll avoid your warranty.
Yeah.
It's a good vacuum, but the beater bar is too aggressive and it'll ruin it. And people go, well, I didn't know that. But I guess because when you're talking about carpet or stuff like that, it's easier for them to say, well, I didn't know that. But when you tell them about why we're a republic, they're like, it falls back to the, yeah, but.
I don't care.
Scenario. Yeah, it's like, yeah, that might be true, but I think people need a little training to own a gun. Well, no, but, so they, what you want and need are different. And, somebody before they can own a gun should have enough brains, and the person selling them the gun might help get them into some training. But it's not mandatory, and it is not part of your constitutional rights. You can buy a gun. Right. You can own it. You can trade it. You can make your own. It goes down all those paths.
Yes.
And people have a hard time going, oh, I didn't know that. Everyone's got to have their damn opinion, and it always starts with, yeah, but.
Exactly. No, I agree. But you just, like I said, that's why I said you have to educate yourself, because you have to know what you're talking about. You have to be able to explain to people.
Well, and it wasn't really that damn complicated 200 years ago, because, when Thomas Paine wrote Common Sense, it's really what it was, common sense. If your yard has weeds, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to go, oh, I need to get rid of the weeds. But they want to complicate it, and that's the Federalist Papers, as great as they are, try reading that. God, I'd rather gargle with dirt.
Yeah, I know.
But yet, but that was more of the debate before the ratification. It's like, the back and forth of what this word should be and what it would mean and how it would apply. But when you look at the Constitution as ratified, you have these rights, and the federal government has very little authority. And so when they start trying to tell me, well, but 50 years ago we had this act passed, which is not law, it's just an act. And so it changed everything. It's like, no, it really didn't. It's just now it's more of an uphill battle to get the judge to understand it. This is what you have the right to do, and so it makes it complicated. So is there another step before we take a break? We can, we got another minute, and then.
Well, I'll tell you what, why don't we go ahead and cut to break, and then when we come back, let's start wrapping it up. But before we do, let's talk a little bit about, I'd like to talk about some of how, because you're talking about back in time, the ridiculousness of how we raped and pillaged and plundered the United States from Mexico. And
oh yeah, that's. I
think we can finish up there.
That might kind of be a good segue into what we're talking about.
Exactly.
All righty.
We'll take a break and we'll come back right after this.
All right.
Let's talk about tea. Not just any tea, getthetea.com. They have all kinds of cool stuff. They have cleansing teas, they have stuff for eye health, stuff from the sea, immune support, stamina and energy, food and protein, and just all kinds of cool stuff. Log on to the website at www.getthetea.com. Log on now.